Welcome, benvenido, Hunying, benvenuto. The world is getting ready to be set on fire with the new podcast, Souls of Solidarity, coming to the Mystic 7 Record and Film YouTube channel August 22nd, 2020 at 8 p.m. We're a show where you, as an independent artist, musician, writer, filmmaker, or producer, can have a voice. Whether it be a book, new music, a film, or script you've written, we're there for you. We will cover major social issues, people in business with heartwarming stories. So join us, grab a drink, a joint, or whatever your fancy. Buckle up for the roller coaster ride of the century. Join us to the journey of the center of entertainment. New independent artists, upcoming filmmakers, new and exciting authors share their voices. Again, join us every Saturday after 8 p.m. for Souls of Solidarity.
Welcome, benvenido, ¿cómo está? Bien. Anyway, for the next hour, grab your favorite libations, a joint, or whatever your fancy, and come along for another ride to our journey to the center of entertainment, while we're going to share and discuss what's important in the world of music, literature, film, social events, and community. Therefore, we exist to give you that platform that you so long crave for. So flip that dial, pull up a chair, and once again, tune in to Mystic 7 Records and Film, Souls of Solidarity. Today we're going to have some interesting topics to discuss. And I'll get into a brief dialogue before I start the topics. Well, we start our topics today with, I'm going to talk about the history of the word nigger. And lately, and some of the places I've been to, parties and things, I've heard dialogue, people using or throwing that word around loosely. And I wanted to talk about where that word came from, how it came about. Now, as you know, I'm a very proud black man, and I've never taken kindly to that word. But let's discuss its meaning and history and how it kind of came about. First of all, the history of the word nigger is often traced to the Latin word niger, meaning black. Okay, so now this word became the noun Negro, black person in English, and simply the color black in Spanish and Portuguese. Now in early modern French, niger became negre, and later negress, meaning black woman, was unmistakably a part of language history. So no matter what its origins, by the early 1800s, it was firmly established as a derogative name. So, why is it a derogative name when we have such historical, famous, accomplished black people in our history, but yet they continue to want to use derogatory terms toward us? So let's take a look. Now, as you could see, I have a collage and montage of famous African American people or black people who have contributed to this society and to the growth of this nation we call America. But with that growth, we still have a lot of discrimination. So I want to get back to that word, which I don't really like to say that much because I don't use it. But the word nigger, its origins is by the early 1800s. It was firmly established as a derogatory name, very derogatory. In the 21st century, it remains still today a principal term of white racism, regardless of who is using it. Social scientists agree that words like nigger, kike, spick, wetback come from three categories, disparaging nicknames: chink, dago, and nigger. Explicit group devaluations use the common term Jew him down or niggering the land in the sense of the way that they spreaded slaves around and property and things like that. And it dealt with irrelevant ethnic names used as a mild dispersion. Jewbird for cuckoos, having prominent breaks, or Irish confetti for bricks thrown in a fight. Now, over time, racial slurs have victimized all races and ethnic groups, but no American group has endured as many racial nicknames as blacks, with all the nicknames that they've given them, like coon, Tom, savage, pickaninny, mammy, buck, samba, jigaboo, buckwheat, are all just some of the many names that have been used towards black people. Now, many of these slurs have become fully traditional, pseudoscientific, literary, cinematic, and everyday distortions of African Americans. These caricatures, whether spoken, written, or reproduced in media and material objects, perpetuate, reflect, emulate the extent and the vast network of anti-black prejudice. The word nigger carries with it much of the hatred, disgust directed toward Black Americans and African Americans. Historically, nigger defined, limited, made fun of, ridiculed of all blacks. It was a term of exclusion, a verbal reason for discrimination. Whether used as a noun, verb, or adjective, it strengthened the stereotype of the lazy, stupid, dirty, worthless nobody. No other American surname carries as much purposeful cruelty. So, I want to get into a discussion about how this word has become so racial in tone and hurtful, yet we continue to use it. But let me explain. Let me give you a list here of how people use this term. Following, it's a short list. It's important information on words, use, and meanings. Okay, so they have one called naggers, which is acting in a lazy and irresponsible manner. Nigger lipping, which is wetting the end of a cigarette while smoking it. Nigger lover, derogatory term aimed at whites, lacking in the necessary loathing of blacks. Nigger luck, exceptionally but undeserved good luck. Nigger flicker, a small knife or razor with one side heavily taped to the perverse of the user's fingers. Then they have nigger heaven, designated place, usually the balcony, where blacks were forced to sit, for example, when they, in an integrated movie or theater or church, they would always put the blacks up in the balcony away from everybody. So they called it integration, but because you were able to enter the facility. However, you were castrated up to the balcony so that you would mingle with the white patrons. Similar to the way they did us on the bus, where they made blacks sit in the back of the bus, and until Rosa Parker changed that. Another word they like to use is nigger knocker, which is an axe handle or weapon made from an axe handle. Nigger rich, deeply in debt but flamboyant. A nigger shooter, a slingshot. Nigger steak is a slice of liver or a cheap piece of meat. A nigger stick, which is a police officer's baton that he likes to beat you with. A nigger tip, leaving a small tip or no tip in a restaurant. A nigger in the woodpile, a concealed motive or unknown factor affecting the situation in an adverse way. Nigger work, the meaning and menial task. So you can see how this word has become a hateful, disrespectful word, but yet rap artists still use it, and you got white people singing songs about niggas and think, it's all good and everything. But, I can't change how you feel, what you say, or what you do in life. That's all up to you. I just have my opinions about things, and you may have a different opinion about how you feel about it, and that's fine. Everybody has a right to their opinion. But I will tell you this. Next time you want to loosely use that word, please think about how hurtful the word is. People thinking that the word is all good and it's cool to use it around your homies and your people and your dogs and the whole thing. Think about it and be diligent in your choice of words. Understand what you say before you say it, because unless you know the history of hate, you're going to continue to say things and do things because you get public influence. Take a time out in life to learn about historical things before you say things. Just because Joe Blow down the street is saying it, or you hear a rap song, hey man, that nigga that's a nigga that, hey, it doesn't mean it's cool. It's everybody needs to really just think, because if you look at the people behind me, they've made headways. Blacks have done so much for America. They built the White House. They built a lot of those universities and things that wouldn't even allow us in there, that excluded us from things. America was built on the back of blacks and slave labor. So don't give me the bullshit that, we're this downtrodden people that don't do shit in life, because if you didn't have us, America wouldn't be built. So next time you want to talk shit about black people, think about how this country was built, and then maybe you'll learn to have more heart in how you deal with people. That's all I have to say about it. I have peace for everybody, but we're going to move on to the next topic. One last thing I want to say before we do move on to the next topic is that those of you who have lived through the civil rights movement, who know anything about the history of Martin Luther King and how he fought to get respect and economic equal treatment and level the playing field for blacks, they discouraged the use of that word, and because they were proud people. So Follow Martin Luther King and the civil rights action, and you'll be able to see things that you never realized before. And maybe next time, as a black man, you'll be proud and never you want to use that word. All right, let's move on to our next topic. And this week, we're going to discuss the top 5 grossing entertainers, music entertainers. We're going to deal strictly with music. And last week we had talked about the top 5 entertainers that gave you the great concerts and shows. But this week we're going to discuss the top 5 grossing acts who have sold a lot of units and made money in the industry. So our first one, we're going to start from number 5 and move up to number 1. So our first guest. Now, our first artist that we're going to talk about, who are one of the grossing artists of all time, is at number 5 would be Led Zeppelin. Now, Led Zeppelin, they worked in the blues, rock, and folk rock genre. However, they're considered the purveyors of heavy metal. That just lets you know how much of a wide appeal they have. Now, their single "Stairway to Heaven" remains one of the most popular and influential songs in rock history. Their tours broke many records in attendance. Their albums are among the best-selling. All of their 9 albums broke into the top 10, and 6 hit the number 1 spot. Their legacy is monumental, and among fans and musicians alike, they've won all the awards, and they just deserve their spot on this list. And if you really listen to Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, all those guys came out of Led Zeppelin, and they all went and had great solo careers also, especially Robert Plant. But I'm going to give you a trivia fact about Led Zeppelin. They worked in a time, before the internet existed. So it's been almost 40 years since their last album. And the internet, combined mind power, has come to realize just how many of their songs they plagiarized. If not, were heavily influenced by some of the artists. So anyway, Led Zeppelin songs still live on. Whole Lot of Love, Stairway to Heaven. So they come in at number 5. Now at number 4 is one of my favorites, the Eagles. Now, the Eagles, in an original 9-year run starting in 1971, the Eagles made an incredible impact on music. All of their albums had several high-performing singles, but rarely reaching the number 1 spot. But their consistency has led to their greatest hits album being the highest-selling album of all time, with their album Hotel California being the 3rd best-selling. In 1994, they reformed and released an album with new material and live recordings. They released a documentary, and they started a huge tour. So it only stands that they'll continue to push themselves further in that matter. Their blend of R&B, soul, bluegrass, and rock reached the masses and continues to touch hearts and minds today. And the Eagles have a couple jams that I really liked, and I worked with them. I did promoted a show with them years ago, and them and the Black Eyed Peas, and the Eagles' great musicianship just stood out amongst that whole concert. But I give you a trivial fact about the Eagles. One member of the Eagles was fired from the group after demanding a higher percentage of the group's profits. instead of the even 5-way split they had since day one. He later sued for other reasons as revenge and tried to get $50 million in damages. The judges dismissed it and threw the case out, so he didn't get anything. But they're still around, and if you get a chance to listen to them, they're a good band. So now let's move to number 3. Yeah, now we have Elvis Presley, like I said, at number 3. And he's similar to Michael Jackson in many ways. You know, they called him the King of Rock, and is also considered one of the most important cultural icons of the 20th century. His output was monumental, including 24 studio albums, 17 soundtracks, and starring in 33 Hollywood films in 25 years. You know, I know you must think I talk about Presley every week, but depending on our categories, and I know a lot of you say, well, what about Michael Jackson? Now, Michael Jackson technically sold more albums. It probably has more certified sales with Thriller, but overall, Presley had grossed a lot more. And you know, they both were great in their genre. But you know, we're only dealing with units this week, units and certified sales, because Presley did sell over 146.5 million units, but he also has certified sales of 225.7 million. You know, he holds the record for the most songs to chart in Billboard's top 40, 115 songs, and their top 100, 152 songs. So he has 25 multi-platinum records, 101 gold albums, which is an all-time record. And the man even has a spider named after him, the Paradonia Presley. The upper bound of his sales estimates reach over 1 billion. Okay. And as we know, a trivial fact on Elvis, he was drafted into the military service in 1958, I think it was, at the height of his career. And he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously in 2016. And so his you know, his legacy still moves on, and we put him in number 3. And his home, his Graceland home, has become the second most visited home in the U.S. after the White House. You know, it's a National Historic Landmark since 2006. So if you ever get down to Memphis and stuff, you can go check it out. But anyway, Elvis comes in at number 3. So let's move on to number 2. Now, as I said, number 2, that's Mr. Garth Brooks. Now, he comes in at 156 million units. Brooks is one of the world's best-selling music artists. You know, he's having sold more than 170 million records. As of 2020, according to the IAA, excuse me, he is the best-selling solo album artist in the United States, with 156 million domestic units sold, ahead of Elvis Presley. And he's second only to our number 1, which I'll discuss. I'm not going to give away our number 1 yet, and total album sales overall. Brooks was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, you know, on October 21st, 2012, I think it was, having been inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame the year before. He was also inducted into the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum in 2016 with studio musicians, the G-Men. Now, on March 4, 2020, Brooks received the Library of Congress Gershwin Prize for Popular Song. At age 58, he is the youngest recipient of the award. And for those of you who are into the country music genre and stuff, you'll probably like Garth Brooks. He gave some amazing concerts and stuff. And now once again, we're talking about grossing units sold and dollars of artists in history. And I know you guys may have others that think grossed more, but we did our facts, our research on a lot of these. So let's talk about who the number one grossing artist is in music history. Now we have, as we said, our number one is the people from Liverpool themselves, the Beatles. Now they had over 183 million units sold. They have certified sales of 279.8 million. Now the Beatles were the only active as a band from 1960 to 1970. Yet hold the clear lead as the best-selling artists of all time. If you add in their solo material, nobody will ever beat them. Now, a huge part of their success was leading the British invasion of British rock, pop and rock stars into the United States. Their art evolved with each release, as did their controversies. They hold all the awards, have starred in films, broke many records, and one of their songs is the most covered ever. The Lennon-McCartney songwriting duo will likely never be topped. Beyond the pop appeal, they were truly some of the best musicians to ever walk the earth. They're so good that kids these days think it's cool to dislike them. But they do. If you really listen to their music, they had some amazing songs and the way that they wrote them and stuff. And the beauty of the Beatles, they wrote all their material that they played. However, because at the time when they were young artists, gave up a lot of their publishing rights, and as a lot of young artists do, when when you're trying to make it and you need some bread on the table and you have to eat, you tend to give up some of your rights. So they gave up their publishing rights to one of the music companies. And then we all know the story as years later that Michael Jackson ended up buying up a lot of their publishing rights of their early songs. And so, and then of course they all split up, and John Lennon went on to have his solo career and then got murdered over at the Dakota Apartments in New York. Paul McCartney had a great solo career and formed the group Wings. Ringo has his group, the drummer, called Ringo and the All-Stars. And then, of course, George Harrison, he also had a very effective and successful solo career. So they all had their own thing, but as a group, they were unmatched. And they came in at number one. So there you have it. So that's pretty much our show for this week. I hope we discussed some very interesting and good topics today, and hope that you learned something. We always like people to learn something from our show. So if you have any thoughts about anything that we talked about, the groups that we covered, the topics that we covered, and the subjects that we covered, you can reach us at Twitter, Mystic 7 Records, Twitter, and follow us on Instagram, RaDante Keys at Instagram, if you'd like to discuss anything that we've talked about. Additionally, you can go onto our website, www.mystic7records.com, and check out our links for any shows that you've missed, and check out our merchandise. Also, hit the subscribe button and become part of the family. As I said, every week, we will try to take you to the journey of center of entertainment, and hope that you're entertained on the things that we talk about, or things that you've learned, or things that you may want to discuss. So, once again, I'll end it with another episode of Souls of Solidarity. And I have these 3 words that I leave everybody with. No matter how controversial the subjects are and the opinions that I give are how opinionated, I still have love for everybody. I have prosperity, and I definitely have solidarity for everyone. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or whatever. We're all human beings when it's all said and done. And I have solidarity for everybody. Anyway, I'm out. Love ya.